David Hale had moved to the edge of the human colony world because he wanted peace. He was an engineer by trade, a man who fixed broken things and made machines work again. For years he had worked in the noisy cities of Earth, surrounded by endless people, neon lights, and voices that never stopped. It had drained him, so when the offer came to take a quiet house on this distant colony, he accepted without thinking twice. His new home was simple, but it was enough for him. It stood on the outskirts of the colony, where green fields stretched out toward the horizon and the nights were silent except for the hum of the wind. Most of his neighbors were colonists like him, humans who wanted to start fresh on this new frontier. But one of his neighbors was not human. Her name was Lyra. David had seen her only a handful of times in passing. She was tall and graceful, with skin that shimmered faintly in the sunlight as though a soft layer of silver dust rested on her. Her eyes were large, deep, and dark, with a quiet sadness in them. She wore long cloaks even in the warm climate, and she rarely spoke. Rumor among the other colonists was that she was a widow, her husband having died under mysterious circumstances before David even arrived. No one knew much else about her. David had never thought much about it. People had their past, their secrets. He respected that. He lived his life, fixed colony machines, and spent his evenings drinking tea by the window. Then came the knock. It was late in the evening. The twin moons of the colony hung low in the sky, casting silver light across the quiet fields. David was reading an old engineering manual when he heard it. 3 soft, deliberate knocks at his door. He frowned. Few people ever visited him, and at this hour no one should. Rising slowly, he set the book aside and walked to the door. When he opened it, he froze. Lyra stood there. She looked different than she had in passing before. Her hood was lowered, and the glow of the moons reflected across her silver-touched skin. There was tension in her posture, as though she had been standing there for some time before knocking. Her hands, long and delicate, were clasped tightly in front of her. "David Hale," she said softly, her voice carrying a strange, musical tone that made his own name sound unfamiliar. "Yes," he said carefully. "That's me." "Lyra, isn't it?" She nodded. "May I come in? I need to speak with you." "It is important," David hesitated. He was not used to surprise visits, especially not from neighbors he barely knew. But something in her eyes stopped him from refusing. There was urgency there and something else, trust perhaps. A desperation. "Of course," he said finally, stepping aside. Lyra entered quietly, moving with a grace that made no sound on the wooden floor. David closed the door behind her, then gestured toward the small table near the window. "Please sit." She lowered herself onto the chair, her cloak wrapping around her like a shadow. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The silence stretched, filled only by the hum of the night wind outside. Finally, David broke it. "What brings you here?" Lyra lifted her gaze to meet his. "I would not disturb you if it were not necessary. But I have no one else I can trust, and I believe you may be the only one who can help me." David leaned back slightly, unsure how to respond. "Help you with what?" She hesitated, as if weighing her words. Then she spoke slowly. "My husband. Before he passed, he was working on something dangerous, something others would kill to possess. After his death, I found what he left behind. But I cannot open it. It does not answer to me or to anyone of my kind. It is locked, bound to a different touch. A human touch." David's brow furrowed. "Are you saying your husband left behind? What, some kind of device?" "Yes," she said softly. "A device unlike anything humans have made. It holds knowledge, maps, warnings, and secrets of old. I do not fully understand it, but I know others are searching for it. They believe I have it, and if they discover I do, they will come." The air in the small room felt heavier after her words. David leaned forward. "And you want me to help open it?" She nodded. "I do. You are skilled with machines. I have seen how you work, how you fix things others believe broken. And more than that, you are human. The device will not respond to me, but it may respond to you." David's thoughts raced. He had moved to this colony to escape complications, not invite them. But here was his neighbor, sitting in his home speaking of devices and danger. He should have refused. He should have told her to leave and forget the matter, but he didn't. Instead, he asked, "Why me? There must be others more qualified. Scientists, engineers from the colony's main hub. Why not them?" Her eyes darkened. "Because I cannot trust them. My husband's death was not natural. It was no accident. Those who wanted him silenced still watch. If I go to the authorities, the device will be taken, buried, or destroyed. They will say it was for safety, but I know better. And if the wrong hands claim it, she shook her head. It will bring only destruction. David felt a chill creep down his spine. So you're saying this is dangerous, deadly? Yes, she admitted. But it is also important. If my husband was right, this knowledge could save entire worlds. It could protect both my people and yours. That is why I came to you. The room was silent again. Outside, the wind shifted, rattling the window pane. David stared at Lyra, searching for any sign of deception. But all he saw was honesty and fear. He exhaled slowly. You're asking me to take a big risk. I know. And what if I say no? She lowered her gaze. Then I will leave you in peace. I will not trouble you again. But know this, sooner or later they will come. And if they find me unprepared, it will not only be my end, it may touch others as well. David rubbed his temples. This was madness. He wanted a quiet life free of danger, and yet something inside him stirred. A curiosity, a sense of duty. Maybe even a spark of excitement he hadn't felt in years. He looked at Lyra again. Her eyes met his, and for a moment he saw not just an alien widow, but a person carrying a heavy burden alone. Finally, he said, "Show me the device." For the first time that evening, Lyra allowed herself a faint smile. It was brief, almost invisible, but it was there. She rose slowly, pulling her cloak tighter around her. "Tomorrow," she said. "I will bring it tomorrow when the sun is high. Tonight, you only needed to decide, and now you have." David swallowed hard. He wasn't sure if he had made a choice or walked into a trap. But one thing was certain. His quiet, uneventful life had ended with that knock on his door. And whatever came next, there would be no turning back. The next morning came with pale sunlight spilling across the fields. David hardly slept the night before. His mind had been restless, filled with questions about Lyra's strange visit. What kind of device could only respond to human touch? What kind of danger was she in? And why had she chosen him of all people? He had come to this colony for peace, not secrets, not danger. Yet here he was, waiting anxiously in his own living room, a cup of tea untouched on the table. When the sun was high, there came another knock at his door. This time it was softer, more careful. David rose quickly and opened it. Lyra stood there again, her cloak drawn tightly around her. But unlike last night, she was carrying something. A small case, long and narrow, sealed with alien markings etched in glowing lines. She held it carefully as if it were both fragile and precious. "May I come in?" she asked. David nodded and stepped aside. She entered and placed the case gently on the table. The markings glowed faintly in the daylight, shifting as though alive. David stared at it, unable to look away. "That's it?" he asked. "Yes," Lyra said softly. She lowered her hood, her silver-touched skin catching the light. "This belonged to my husband. He guarded it with his life. After his death, it was the only thing left in our home untouched. I believe he meant for me to protect it, or perhaps for me to find the one who could open it." David leaned closer, examining the strange object. "What's inside?" Her dark eyes met his. "Truth. Secrets my people buried long ago. Knowledge that others want silenced. My husband believed it could change the balance between species. He believed it could save lives." David frowned. "And you think I can open it because I'm human?" "Yes," she said, her voice steady. "This device was crafted in an ancient alliance between our kind and yours many generations ago. Most humans do not know of it. But in my husband's research, he found records. The old writings said, 'Only the hand of a human may awaken the sealed memory.'" David blinked, unsure if he should laugh or feel honored. "That sounds like something out of a legend." "Legends," Lyra replied, "often hide truths." He reached toward the case, then stopped, hesitating. "If I open this, if I really can, what happens then?" Lyra looked down at her hands. "Then we will see what my husband died for, and we will know who hunts us." The silence in the room grew heavy. Finally, David exhaled and said, "All right, let's try." Lyra gave a small nod and pressed her hand over one of the glowing symbols. The markings rippled, then dimmed as if acknowledging her touch. The case hummed faintly. She gestured for David to continue. He placed his hand gently on the center of the markings. The moment his skin touched the surface, the lines flared to life brighter than before, spilling pale light across the room. David felt a vibration run through his fingers, not painful but sharp, like static. The case gave a soft chime, then slowly unfolded. Panels slid aside, revealing a crystal sphere suspended in the center, floating on invisible energy. David stepped back in awe. "What is that?" "The core," Lyra whispered. Her voice carried both fear and reverence. "It holds the memory of the stars." The sphere pulsed once, and then it projected light into the air above the table. Suddenly, the room was filled with a map of galaxies, stars, and shifting pathways of light. David gasped. It was like standing at the center of the universe. Lines connected star systems, forming routes and patterns. Strange symbols glowed at certain points, warnings perhaps, or destinations. Among the glowing maps, a single mark pulsed brighter than the rest. "What is that one?" David asked, pointing. Lyra's eyes narrowed. "A signal. A warning. My husband said there was a storm coming, not of weather but of war. He believed this memory held the proof." David studied the map, feeling small in its vastness. "And now others want this. That's why he was killed." "Yes," Lyra said quietly. "He died protecting it. And now, they will come for me. Unless we can finish what he began." David turned toward her. "And what exactly did he begin?" She looked at him with sadness in her eyes. "He searched for the truth of our past. My people, we do not speak of it. Long ago we fought wars across the stars. Alliances were made and then forgotten. Secrets were buried. But he found pieces, fragments of records that spoke of an enemy greater than any of us. Something ancient, something that once destroyed entire worlds. My husband believed it was returning." David felt his chest tighten. "And this map shows—" "Where?" She nodded. "Where they first appeared. Where they may appear again." The sphere flickered, projecting strange shapes almost like shadows moving among the stars. David shivered. "Why tell me all this?" he asked. "I'm just an engineer. I fix machines. I'm not a soldier, not a leader." Lyra's voice softened. "Because you listened. Because you helped. And because whether you know it or not, you already made a choice last night when you let me in." David rubbed his forehead. "You make it sound simple." "It is not simple," she admitted. "It is dangerous. If you walk away now, I will not blame you. But I believe fate brought you here for a reason. Perhaps my husband knew even before his end that a human would be needed again." David stared at the glowing map. A part of him screamed to walk away, to close the case and forget any of this ever happened. But another part of him, the part that had always fixed what was broken, couldn't. Finally, he asked, "Who are these people you say are watching you?" "The ones who killed your husband?" Her lips tightened. "Not all of my people are honest. Some serve powers that fear change. Others serve enemies hidden in shadows. I do not know who gave the order, only that they wanted him silenced. And they will not stop until they have this device." David swallowed hard. "Then what's the plan?" She lowered the projection with a wave of her hand. The sphere dimmed, folding back into the case, which sealed itself once more. "The plan," she said firmly, "is to learn all we can before they find us. To understand what this map means and why my husband believed it was our only chance. And when they come—" Her voice grew colder. "We will be ready." David looked at her, surprised at the sudden steel in her tone. For the first time, he saw not just a grieving widow, but a woman carrying her husband's unfinished war. "You sound like you've already decided," he said quietly. "I have," she replied, "but I cannot do it alone." The room fell into silence again. Outside, the sun climbed higher, casting long shadows across the floor. David finally gave a small nod. "All right. I'll help, but we need to be careful. If what you say is true, then we don't have much time." For the first time, a real spark lit in Lyra's eyes. Hope. "Then we begin together." She closed the case, lifted it carefully, and held it close. David felt the weight of his decision pressing down on him, but also something else, a strange fire stirring in his chest. For years, he had lived quietly, fixing things that didn't matter, but now, he was part of something bigger, and though he feared the danger ahead, a part of him couldn't help but feel alive again. The following days passed in quiet tension. David and Lyra rarely left the house. Whenever David worked outside, repairing farming machines or adjusting water pumps for the colony, he felt eyes on him. He couldn't prove it, but something in his gut told him Lyra had been right. Others were watching. Inside the house, the case with the crystal sphere rested on the table like a silent heart. Its glowing lines shifted faintly from time to time as if alive. David often found himself staring at it, wondering what secrets it held and why it seemed to respond to him. One evening, Lyra arrived carrying stacks of old records. She spread them out across the table. The papers were strange, filled with symbols and drawings he didn't recognize, mixed with fragments translated into human language. "My husband collected these for years," Lyra explained. "They are fragments of history. Our history, your history, joined long ago. Most of my people call them myths. But he believed they were warnings. He believed the device you opened is proof." David leaned over the records. "And you think this thing has more than just maps?" Lyra nodded slowly. "Yes, he called it the Forbidden Device. That name alone tells you how dangerous it is. Long ago our leaders chose to seal it away. They feared its knowledge would divide worlds or spark wars. They were not wrong. Knowledge is power, and power always tempts." David frowned. "If it's so dangerous, why did your husband search for it?" Her eyes grew distant, filled with both sorrow and pride. "Because he believed danger should not be ignored. If there is a storm, hiding from it will not stop the rain. He thought the old leaders were wrong to bury the truth. He thought if we faced it together, with humans and my kind working as one, we could survive what was coming." David rubbed his chin. "And you believe him?" "I do," she said firmly. They sat in silence for a while, the hum of the device filling the air. Finally, David placed his hand on the glowing surface. Instantly, the lines lit up and the case unfolded once more. The crystal sphere rose, spinning slowly in the air. Light spilled across the room. Maps appeared again, vast and endless. But this time, new images surfaced. Strange structures floated above alien worlds. Ruins, towers, machines half buried in deserts. Some looked like weapons. Others like great monuments. Symbols flashed around them, unreadable to David but familiar to Lyra. She whispered as she read. Records, warnings, names of places where battles once burned. David watched the images shift.
"What are those ruins?"
"Remnants of an enemy," Lyra said, her voice tight. "My husband called them the Voidborn. They came from beyond known stars. They left destruction, then vanished. Our ancestors fought them, but the cost was terrible. Worlds burned and peace was broken. That is when the alliance between our kinds was made. The device was created as both record and weapon." David stiffened. "Weapon?" "Yes," she admitted. "A key to knowledge that could turn the tide of war. That is why it is forbidden. With it, a single leader could rule systems. That is also why others will kill to possess it." David's stomach twisted. "And now we're sitting here with it on the table." Lyra's lips curved into a faint, bitter smile. "Yes, which means we cannot stay hidden forever." The device pulsed, projecting a new image. A planet appeared, marked with the same bright symbol David had seen before. This time the map zoomed closer, showing mountains, rivers, and finally a dark valley where an enormous shadow rested, something shaped like a sleeping giant. "What is that?" David asked quietly. Lyra's eyes widened. "One of their machines. Still buried, still alive." David felt his throat dry. "Alive, as in waiting?" "Yes," she said. "My husband believed the Voidborn left seeds of their war behind. Machines, weapons, maybe even armies, waiting for the right signal to awaken. He thought the signal is coming soon. That is why he died. He was close to proving it." The room felt colder. David stepped back, his mind racing. "If this is true, if they're still out there, then we will need more than fear to stop them," Lyra said firmly. The device shifted again. This time the map displayed a path, a line of light moving between stars leading straight to the colony they lived on. David froze. "Why is it pointing here?" Lyra's expression grew grim. "Because this world is next. Perhaps the machine buried here is waking. Perhaps that is why they watch me so closely." David felt the weight of the revelation pressing on him. The colony was small, unprepared for such danger. If this was true, no one else knew. He turned to Lyra. "We have to tell someone. The colony leaders, the council—" "No," she interrupted sharply. "If we do, the device will be taken. They will lock it away, just like before. And then, when the storm comes, no one will be ready. My husband trusted no one but me. Now I trust no one but you." David met her gaze. She was deadly serious. He wanted to argue, but deep down he understood. Power like this wouldn't stay safe in the hands of politicians. It would be hidden or, worse, misused. "All right," he said finally. "Then what do we do?" She exhaled slowly. "We learn, we study. and we prepare. This device responds to you, not to me. That makes you the key now, David Hale. Like it or not. David shook his head with a weak laugh. I'm just a man who fixes broken machines. How am I supposed to stop an ancient enemy? By being human, Lyra said quietly. My husband believed your kind had a gift, curiosity, resilience, the will to fight even when the odds are impossible. That is why the device responds to you. That is why he believed humanity must rise again. Her words settled heavily in the air. For a while they worked in silence, recording what the device showed. David drew maps on paper while Lyra translated the alien symbols. Hours passed, the light outside fading into night. Suddenly the device flickered. The maps vanished. Instead, a strange message appeared in the air, symbols flashing red. The case trembled. Lyra's face paled. They found us, David's pulse quickened.
What do you mean?
The device is connected to the old network. When it activated, it sent a signal. Someone is tracking it now. David grabbed the case as it sealed shut. How long before they get here? Not long, she whispered. They will not come openly. They will send watchers first. Spies. Assassins, maybe. David felt the weight of the case in his hands. For the first time, it didn't feel like a treasure, it felt like a curse. We have to move, he said. We can't stay here. Lyra nodded slowly. But her eyes were filled with fire. No, we cannot run forever. My husband believed in facing truth, not hiding from it. If they come, we will be ready. Together. David stared at her, then at the sealed device. His quiet life was gone. The colony, the fields, the evenings of peace, all of it was over. Now he was holding something that could decide the future of two species, and somewhere out in the dark, someone was already coming for it. The night after the device sent out its strange signal was restless. David did not sleep. He kept pacing the small house, glancing at the sealed case resting on the table. Every shadow outside the window felt like it was hiding something. Every sound of the wind against the walls made him tense. Lyra sat silently near the case, her cloak wrapped around her. She looked calm, but David knew it was the calm of someone who had already accepted danger. He, on the other hand, felt like his heart might break out of his chest. Finally, as the first light of dawn slipped into the room, Lyra spoke. They will not stop, she said softly. As long as this device exists, they will chase it. And as long as it responds to you, they will chase you too. David stopped pacing. So what do you suggest? Throw it into the river? Smash it with a hammer? Lyra's gaze was steady. That would not stop them. They would still believe it exists. They would still search. And besides, destroying knowledge is never the answer. My husband believed that. And so do I. David ran a hand through his hair. Then what's the plan, Lyra? Because right now I feel like I've been dragged into something I never asked for. She tilted her head slightly. You had a choice last night when I knocked on your door. You opened it. That was the moment you stepped into this path. David laughed bitterly. Some choice. Lyra leaned forward. Her voice was firm but not unkind. David Hale, I will not lie to you. This is dangerous. You may lose the quiet life you wanted. You may even lose your safety. But I am asking you for more than help now. I am offering you something in return. David narrowed his eyes. What kind of offer? She lifted the case gently, setting it between them. Partnership. You have something no one else does. The device listens to you. I have something no one else can give. Knowledge of its secrets and of those who hunt it. Alone we are weak. Together, we can finish what my husband started. Together we can prepare for what is coming. David crossed his arms. And if I refuse? Her dark eyes softened. Then I will leave and you will return to your machines and your quiet life. But you will always know the truth is out there waiting, and when the storm comes you will know you turned away. The words struck deeper than he expected. David had always been the kind of man who fixed what was broken, who solved problems others ignored. Walking away now would not be peace, it would be cowardice, he sighed heavily. So what exactly do you want me to do? Lyra leaned closer. Help me unlock the device fully. Learn everything it holds. Train with me to protect it. When the time comes, we will show the truth to both our peoples. We will not let the Voidborn return without warning. That was my husband's dream. And now it must be ours. David stared at her for a long time. Finally he said, You really believe in me, don't you? Yes, she said simply. Because the device does. The room fell into silence again, but it was different this time. The tension between them was not just fear. It was a bond forming built on trust. At last, David gave a slow nod. "All right, Lyra, I'll do it. I'll stand with you." For the first time since he had met her, Lyra smiled. It was faint, but it was real. "Then we are no longer alone." The next days became a blur of work and preparation. David and Lyra studied the device for hours each day. Whenever David touched it, new layers of information appeared: maps, warnings, strange codes. Lyra translated what she could, explaining symbols and meanings passed down from old records. David filled notebooks with diagrams. He was no scientist, but his engineer's mind caught patterns others might miss. Slowly, piece by piece, they began to understand. They learned of ancient battles fought among stars. They saw warnings of machines hidden beneath worlds. They discovered strange signals still echoing across space, waiting to awaken what was buried. But with knowledge came more danger. Twice David noticed strangers at the edge of the colony, figures who vanished when he approached. One night he spotted a faint red light moving across his window like a scanner. Someone was watching them closely now. Lyra was not surprised. "They are testing our defenses. Soon they will act." David's stomach twisted. "And what happens when they do?" She placed a hand on the case. "We will be ready." One evening, as the sun set in crimson light, David sat outside sharpening an old tool into something like a weapon. He had never been a fighter, but Lyra insisted he learn to defend himself. She joined him, sitting quietly. For a long moment they watched the horizon together. "David," she said finally, "I want you to know something. My people call me Widow. They see me as broken, left behind. But since the night I knocked on your door, I have not felt alone. Whatever happens, I am grateful." David looked at her, surprised by her honesty. He nodded slowly. "Then let's make sure your husband's work wasn't for nothing." And in that moment, both of them knew the partnership was sealed. Not by contract, not by force, but by choice. The offer had been made. The offer had been accepted, and now there was no turning back. The night they came began quietly. Too quietly. David and Lyra were in the house, the device open on the table. They were studying a new projection, a signal pulsing faintly from deep space. It was not the Voidborn yet, but something like an echo, a message repeating across centuries. Suddenly the lights flickered. The device dimmed, and outside the sound of footsteps filled the silence. David froze. "They're here!" Lyra rose swiftly, pulling her cloak tighter. "Stay calm. Remember what we practiced." The first blow came against the door, a heavy strike that rattled the frame. David grabbed the sharpened tool he had prepared. His hands shook, but he forced himself to stand steady. The door burst open. 3 figures stepped inside, cloaked in dark armor, their faces hidden behind smooth helmets. Their movements were silent, precise. "Give us the device," one of them said in a cold, distorted voice. David's heart pounded. For a moment he thought of surrendering. But then he remembered Lyra's words, her husband's sacrifice, and the truth they had uncovered. He tightened his grip. No. The intruders moved fast, but so did David. He lunged forward, swinging his makeshift weapon. It struck one of them across the arm, sparks flying as metal met metal. The figure staggered back. Lyra raised her hand, pressing a small device hidden in her sleeve. A burst of light filled the room, blinding the attackers. "Now!" she shouted. David shoved the table, knocking the glowing case to the floor. The crystal sphere inside flared to life, projecting maps and warnings in all directions. The intruders hesitated, shielding their eyes. "David!" Lyra called. "The device is with you. Use it." David placed his hand on the sphere. Instantly, light surged through the room. The maps twisted, changing into something new. The device was no longer just showing history. It was responding to the present. Symbols glowed red, surrounding the intruders. The air hummed. A shockwave burst outward, knocking the armored figures back against the walls. Their helmets cracked. Sparks flew. David gasped, pulling his hand back. "What did I just do?" Lyra's eyes were wide with awe. "You awakened its defense. The device trusts you." The intruders staggered, then fled into the night. The house fell silent again, except for the hum of the sphere. David's chest heaved with breath. His hands shook. But deep inside, something had changed. He was no longer just an engineer. He was the keeper of a weapon of truth. The days that followed were uneasy. Word spread through the colony of strange lights and shadows in the sky. People whispered about hidden watchers. The council made no announcements. But David and Lyra knew they were no longer safe. One night, as they studied the device again, it revealed something new, a message written in both human and alien script. It read, "When the storm returns, it is not one world that will decide the fight, but many. The alliance must rise again." David read it twice, then looked at Lyra. "It's calling for us to unite. Humans and your people together." She nodded. "This was always the truth my husband sought. Not fear, not silence, but alliance." David felt the weight of it pressing on him. He had never wanted to lead, never wanted to carry responsibility beyond fixing machines. But now he understood humanity had a role to play. His role was to make sure they answered the call. "Then that's what we'll do," he said firmly. "We'll share this when the time is right. We'll prepare both our peoples." Lyra's eyes softened. "And when the storm comes?" David placed his hand back on the sphere. The device glowed, brighter than ever, as if agreeing. "Then," David said quietly, "we'll show them what it means to be human." That night, as the stars spread across the sky, David stood outside the house. The field stretched out before him, silent and endless. But he no longer felt like a man running from the world. He felt like a man standing at the edge of history. The storm was coming. The Voidborn would return, but this time humanity would not be silent. This time they would answer, and it had all begun with a knock on his door.